Hello, hello, beautiful community. I hope that you are doing well today. As you can see, I am thoroughly enjoying the last rays of the sunshine. I'm so grateful that we're getting a little bit longer days here. Today, it is the final day of January, and it is 5 o'clock Central Time. Whenever and wherever you are watching this, I want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of the Care Plan community. I'm Jackie Boyd. I'm the owner and founder of the Care Plan, and I'm so excited to talk with you about how to dream, strategize, and plan to age with grace. And by grace, I don't mean, literal graceful actions. Or movements. What I mean is age on your terms. Have a vision for yourself that you are aware of, that you are excited about or comforted by, that is ideally documented and shared with your loved ones. The reason why that's so important is because no one can read our minds, right? And you may have all these thoughts, some positive, some fearful, some lessons learned, some things you know that you would want in regards to your care, and no one can read your mind. Even your closest loved ones won't know all of that without you telling them. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. This is a retro mug. This is our first logo. We recently rebranded, and it's a little chilly. I needed a cup of tea, so excited to share some retro merch of the Care Plans. But let's go ahead and dive in. I think it's important to remember that care planning at any age is valuable. You are worth the time to think about your own life, think about your own needs, and articulate for yourself what you actually want. You're worth that time. You're worth that energy. And I think that's often where it starts is not giving in to the ageism that is pretty rampant in our society, or the idea that, everything will be okay without any planning or thought. I think it's really important to give yourself the time and space to dream. So let's talk about the dream envisioning stage. I got really inspired around this concept because I had the opportunity to work with so many elders. And at some point I realized that it didn't seem like aging was a mystery anymore to me, but it was for so many people in my life and many of the clients I served, right? Because our society, by and large, doesn't plan ahead for the fourth quarter of life, many individuals and families sort of approach that time, start having challenges and problems, and then need help. And it's a crisis mode, and it really can be very heartbreaking to be learning all of this and trying to figure out what you want or what your loved one wants, and trying to make it happen under crises. That's just not how things work out best in any area. We say the same on the other side of the business with care development, where if we're doing action planning with an organization, spend time thinking about the vision, where you're going, who you are, what you're about, what this really means to you. So the dream time is the opportunity for you to think about a few key elements. And I think it's helpful to have these conversations with friends. So, I might suggest having a dinner with friends, or someone that is also interested in thinking about aging well, having a conversation with them and brainstorming together about what do we want. As I age and think honestly about some of the pitfalls that might enter my life, things like being on a fixed income, or my body changing and declining, or my memory changing and shifting, what are the key elements to living well as those things are happening? My first question that I ask our clients who do sort of this longer term care mapping with us is, what brings you comfort? What brings you comfort? Right? What are the people, places, items, routines, patterns, things that help you feel a little bit better, right? Because if you are sick or depressed or isolated, how do you comfort yourself? Those are often the things no one else knows because, you're taking care of yourself. So that's always my first question, is what brings you comfort? And then I'll give a few scenarios. Like, if you're sick, how are you sick? Are you someone who likes to be, fussed over, checked on? Do you like for people to bring you food or sit with you or listen to music or watch movies? What do you like to do when you're sick and you're not feeling well? Do you have a favorite blanket? Do you like warm, fuzzy materials? Is it a little bit easier to get through that hard time if you have your pet with you or your best friend? The dream portion lets you tap in to what you already know, but maybe haven't asked yourself about, if I'm not really okay, what would help it be a little bit better? And you will be surprised what comes up. You'll be really surprised what comes up when you actually ask yourself, what brings me comfort? If I'm a little bit down, what helps? So, and you can ask yourself different scenarios, right? If you've ever gone through periods of mental distress or grief or loss, you might have some other things that come up around what brings you comfort or what helps you get through. So this can be really helpful because, I managed a home care agency for about 12 years. And anytime you're meeting as a caregiver, meeting a new person, you are learning so much about them, and you rarely get to know these things up front. You learn it over time, but it's very helpful to the people that are going to be around you, supporting you, to know what you like and what brings you comfort. And it's good for you to know it too, so that you can name that. So, for example, I had a client last year who is doing this kind of care mapping, and she was like, oh, I don't care how sick I am, I want a window cracked open so I can feel fresh air. I want big, warm, cozy blankets. I tend to want to, drink soup or have hot tea. If I'm listening to any music, I want it to be classical music. Once we asked the question, she was very, very clear about what she wanted. And I could see the relief on her. And she named that she was relieved because in talking about it and dreaming about it and getting it out, you can see that future, right? Those aren't big things, but those are things your caretakers would need to know, right? Give me a good blanket. Don't leave me in a hospital bed with some scratchy sheets and a thin blanket. Bring my comforter from home or my cozy pajamas. Make sure if I'm, not able to open the window myself, that there's always an open window. So I'm kind of going on and on about that, but it just is an example of even one question about how you might want to age, or how you can think about your needs a little more expansively than just logistics, what it can open up. So in dreaming, I also encourage people to think about who brings you comfort. Who do you like to have around you? Who has particular talents or skills or an approach that feels good to you and in line with how you operate? I think that's really important because, as we age, sometimes our social support networks get a little thin, and we may or may not have close people in our lives. But when you start to think about this stage After you dream and vision, then you move to strategy. So then it's like, okay, if I know that, these people in my life I want to keep in my life, I'm going to make sure we have these conversations and talk together about aging and have community around it. So let yourself think about who the people are in your life that you are hoping will be there at the end of your life and in those last 10, 20 years. Who do you want to be close to? Who do you want to be in conversation with? Who might you want to live with or live near? Who could be a support to you? Again, without feeling like you have to make decisions, it's really important to do the dreaming and the brainstorming. The other piece about this dream stage that I recommend is do the warm and fuzzies, right? The what brings you comfort, what makes you feel better, what are your hopes for aging? I like to think about, where do you want to live? Where do you want to be? Is your current environment the best? Do you want to be closer to someone that you love or closer to better medical care? Or do you want to be on a beach, or in the mountains? Like, think about how you want to spend that time. And it will become clear. And then I encourage you to not sugarcoat anything for yourself, right? Don't move into a state of depression or helplessness, but also don't minimize the realities of aging. If you've had a caregiving experience, if you have been around older adults or folks with chronic illness, or if you do have chronic illness at this moment, give yourself the room and space to think practically about what you're likely to need. For me, when I was putting together my care plan, I was thinking about my likely health journey, right? Not that, again, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know for sure what's going to happen. But I can look at my parents and my grandparents' journeys and think and notice what's going on with me or what my health journey has been so far, and try to be honest and realistic with myself about what that future is likely to look like, right? And that serves two purposes. One, it helps you think through what you can do now to be proactive, preventative, and it also lets you get clear about what that future needs, what those future needs might be. So for example, if I have a client who Alzheimer's runs in their family, we need to spend time thinking and talking about memory loss and what that could look like if and when that's part of their healthcare journey. We need to be thinking and planning for, okay, what are the choices? What are the places you have choice about where you live, about, how your finances can support you, about who you want to be around and what environments are available now. So getting almost into that project management mindset or a very practical mindset can be incredibly, incredibly helpful when you're trying to dream and start to think about strategies for aging with grace. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on today. I'm not sick, but I think I had a little bit of tea and it went down the wrong pipe. So pardon me one moment. And I promise that's not just an opportunity to pop up the logo. You all have seen our beautiful new logo. That's our retro one. But let me get back to where we were. So the dream stage is all about thinking through what could be, what's likely to be. And I even encourage people at this stage to acknowledge their fears, right? To not be afraid to say to yourself, okay, what makes me nervous about getting older? What might cause me disappointment or sadness? Where might I have grief or uncertainty around aging, right? Some of the hardest things that we go through is the loss of our loved ones and the loss of our elders and that elder generation in our lives, and then successive elder generations, right? And that can leave an imprint. It typically does. When you're thinking about this for yourself, I encourage you to not just stay in those feelings about the loss of others in your life, but to really think through, where do I have choice, and what are the choices I'm making with regards to my journey? And asking yourself that question of what am I afraid of lets you name it and plan around it. So for example, if you are a person who says, I never want to live in any kind of institutional setting, I don't want to be in a nursing home, I want to age at home. If you know that about yourself, there are some decisions and things that you would be well served to figure out a decade earlier than you'll actually need it, right? Things like, let me think through and anticipate the costs of being at home. Like, what is that likely to cost, and will there be appropriate caregivers for me? And if I have this kind of healthcare journey, what might I need at home? And if I have this kind of healthcare journey, what might I need at home? What kind of home should I be living in? Do I need to move to a place that's accessible? Or will I be okay in my current environment? So being honest about your fears, it sort of takes away their power, which I think is so important in a lot of arenas, but especially when it comes to aging. There's so much power to be found in claiming the aging process, right? I think about this all the time as a queer Black woman, just how many of my ancestors and peers did not have this opportunity to live beyond age 40. And so I think it really helps motivate me to remember that this is precious time, and that aging is a precious process, and that I can and should try to have as much control over it and clarity about what I want that stage of life to look like. Because it's, we know that no day is promised, but I think I really want to honor those that poured into me and honor those who aren't able to be here by aging well. And so the next stage is really strategizing. And once you have that clarity of the dream stage, the strategy stage is so helpful. And this is often where the relief comes in, because this is the time to write it down and to maybe do some of your research. Talk with trusted folks in your life or experts in various fields, whether that's a friend who's a nurse or somebody who works in healthcare or somebody who does something in long-term care. If you have a network or people in your life that you can tap to just get some information from, say, here's what I'm thinking, I'm doing some care planning and just wanted to run some things by you about your experience and how that might inform any decisions I would make. It's important to strategize around those potential needs, like I talked about, and also finances, because finances are just a reality. As we age, because we live in a capitalist system, you do have more choices if you have more financial resources. However, the lack of financial resources doesn't mean you don't have choice. You still have choices no matter what level you are at financially. And care planning ahead of time lets you know what those choices are, right? If I am thinking, oh, I want to, age at home, and I figure out what those financial projections are likely to be, and I can build a path to get there, to say, okay, at this age, I'm going to get long-term care insurance. I'm going to start saving this amount of money so that, it grows. And by the time I reach older adult years, I'm in a better place. And I have the security of knowing I've achieved that goal. I've been able to kind of provide for myself the resources to care and be at home. I know that this can sound, especially if you are don't come from wealth, or you are um, unsure when it comes to money. Please know that, again, you still have options, and it is well worth looking at. Take, for example, I have clients who live in areas sometimes where, there's only a few options for nursing facilities or home care. Even if they don't have financial resources, if they're on Medicaid or some sort of public aid program, we can talk through what's important to them, what their expectations are and their hopes are, and match them up with the appropriate resource in their price range or covered by their insurance. Oftentimes, though, it just takes a little bit more time to find those resources. So give yourself the gift of time during this strategy period. Really get clear on what you want and think about, how can I get there from here? What do I need to plan for along the way? It's helpful during the strategy time as well to think about your other resources. The client that I mentioned earlier, who is doing this longer term care mapping process, she was like, I have three sons, but and my husband, and I assume they'll take care of me, and they just sort of this general broad strokes, I'll probably be okay feeling. And I remember there was a moment where I asked her, well, who cooks in your house? Who feeds the family? And she said she was the cook, and that nobody else really cooked that well. And I said, well, I know you've said that food is important to you and it's a comfort to you, and in particular, food of your heritage, right? Jewish cuisine, kosher foods. And so I said, are there other resources that we could think about for if you do, if you aren't able to cook for yourself or your family? And she was like, oh, yeah, actually, at my temple, they do that often for people. And oh, yeah, there's this meal service that I could utilize really at any point if I needed to. And so by asking those questions and really thinking through, okay, how will this work, right? Once I know kind of what I want, let me think through the mechanics of it. It was amazing, the resources that she had and the pathways that she had to getting those needs met that hadn't been articulated, and wouldn't have been figured out if she hadn't have taken the time to do the strategy work. So I really want to encourage you to get clear on what resources you might want to utilize. This came in very handy recently, actually with a family member of mine who is starting to lose mobility in his legs and is going to need caregivers. And I was like, we did your care plan 6 years ago. Here's the caregiving agencies in the area. We picked out the top 3. Call them. And they called me about something else, and I was like, it's in your care plan. Here you go. Here's the number for your insurance. Here's the, information that we documented. So it's a relief in the moment to know that you've done this and you have your plan drafted. And it's a relief when you actually need it, because you're not Googling and doing research and calling around to find help. You have exactly the resources that you've already vetted, that you've already trusted. So I know I can sound a little bit like a zealot or a preacher when I talk about care planning, but it's just because we don't have to do this the hard way. We don't have to do this the hard way. We don't have to feel confused and unsure and undereducated about what's out there. We have decades to prepare for aging. That's what we have, is time until we need it. So why not give ourselves the gift of figuring out what we actually want and kind of project managing our way to getting it? And I use project management as a term a lot to sort of help us apply the same lens that we use in our work life or our logistics, problem solving, coordination for our family's life, and apply that to our own aging process. So if those words don't resonate, I get it. It's pretty specific language, but I know for myself, there's like the emotional side of things and the fear-based side of things, and then there's the problem-solving brain. So whenever you can tap into that problem-solving brain around care planning and care coordination, it tends to help ease your stress and anxiety. So those are just some things I wanted to share. The other question that I encourage people to ask during this strategy time is, what are the lessons learned, right? This is sort of in line with that question earlier about what are you afraid of? But lessons learned is a little bit different. What have you learned that you either know you would know you don't want to be sure is incorporated into your plan? Just getting clear on what you already know, what you've already experienced, can be really, really helpful and empowering in the process, because you don't feel like you don't know anything. You at least know what you want. You at least know and have observed other situations. I'm trying to think of an example, but lessons learned can be helpful anytime. And sometimes it's the motivation for people to reach out to us to do that care mapping. The woman that I was talking about, she approached me after a 10-year caregiving journey with her parents. And after they passed, and she had done some grieving and felt ready to approach this for herself, she was like, I don't want it to feel the way it felt. I don't want my family to feel the way I felt for those 10 years, where I felt like these are the people I love the most in the world, and I'm not able to meet their needs, and I don't feel confident that I'm meeting their needs. I'm learning on the job. So both her and some of our other clients who are our power of attorney